This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Right, it is 6:01. I will now call to order the September 11th, 2023 meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. This meeting is being recorded, correct? Yes. This meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission will be conducted in person and simultaneously via remote participation online to the greatest extent possible. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the City of Easthampton website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Should an interruption occur in which the online meeting ends abruptly, but the in-person and online meetings will not be restarted, and all agenda items will be automatically continued to the next scheduled meeting. Any further housekeeping items, Cassie?
Nope, the same procedures remain in place. If any member of the public wants to make a comment at any point, use the raise hand function, and then we'll enter you into a queue, and at which point when we call on your name, after the chair opens it for public comment, you'll have 5 minutes to give your public comment for that item. And I think what else, I haven't received any other public concerns, non-agenda items, so you haven't asked me that yet. So.
Okay. For those in attendance, are there any public concerns or non-agenda items?
Yeah, if anybody has anything, they can raise their hand. Hi, hello, come on in.
Hearing none, we'll move on to public meetings. Our first is a public hearing for a notice of intent filed by Borough Engineering on behalf of Tasty Top Development, LLC, for a new mixed-use commercial and residential development with associated stormwater management system at 93, 95, and 97 Northampton Street, map 128, lot 112, 113, and 114. This is Mass DEP file number 1510322.
I received, I believe Luke Showalter is here for this item, but I also received a request that they wanted to, first they requested to continue, but then they changed and would like to just focus the conversation on the contract with Beals and Thomas, that discussion, because they'd like to wait to discuss other stuff for their response thus far in the supplemental review. And then there might be some folks who want to make a public comment. If that's something the commission is willing to entertain.
We're certainly amenable to that. Luke, are you here? Do you want to introduce yourself for the record?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Luke Showalter, here with Furrow Engineering, representing Tasty Top Development, the applicant.
So the thing that we're going to focus on is the additional contract for peer review. Is that correct, Kathy?
Correct, yeah. So the Beals and Thomas contract that we entered in with Beals and Thomas for the peer review has essentially been completed for the amount of funds that we requested. What's before the commission now is to essentially either add to that contract and extend it beyond what was originally set up, determine what the commission wants to be in there. A supplemental contract has been supplied by Beals and Thomas. But at the end of the last meeting, there was a question about trying to incorporate the NEPA review in some way to do that. And then determining, so that we can continue that peer review, we need to determine what the amount of money that we'd be asking from the applicant to supply so the commission can continue to pay Beals and Thomas.
Okay. Luke, was there anything that you wanted to state from the applicant's perspective?
No, not at this time. As Cassie has said, we just request that the stormwater discussion just be tabled to the next meeting when we can have a full review from Beals and Thomas, and we'll be prepared to present then. Just hoping to have a contract ironed out tonight with Beals and Thomas, just so that we can get that going as soon as possible. Their second round of reviewing our response.
Okay, so one thing that I've been thinking about, we understand that the first stage of the NEPA review is complete and they have required a full EIR, which is the highest level of environmental impact review. So there is a possibility that additional changes to the plans could come out of that process. So one of the questions I wanted to pose to you is whether you want to keep moving forward with the peer review based on the current thinking, or if you would prefer to wait and see what comes out of that process in case there are additional changes. Because if there are substantial changes, we're likely going to want to have the peer reviewer take a look at those as well. So it might be a third round of peer review if you go that direction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's understood. We'd like to continue on with the peer review as if there won't be any significant changes, but understanding that if there are, there will be additional reviews.
Okay, great. So I think Cassie had circulated to all of the commission the potential second phase.
That's the latest.
Were there any comments or questions from the commission? Thoughts on this next piece?
Is that the only copy?
I can put on the screen here in a second. Hold on. There we go.
Colorado copy.
It's dated August 9th, I believe, but I'm not sure when we probably have it at the next meeting after.
So it essentially adds another round, another iteration of review based on the changes that have been made in response to the first round. I believe there is a sort of working session with the applicant to allow the two engineers to work together and just directly address some of the questions that might be still pending, an additional public hearing. And I think that was everything, right, Dusty?
Yeah, and I know, Luke, that you and the rest of the team for the applicant had said that they didn't necessarily want that pre-hearing conference work session anymore. So I can ask Beals and Thomas to strike it, or you can give us the funds for it, and if you don't end up using it, you can get it returned to you at the end of the process.
Yeah, I think the latter would be a good idea. We can provide the funds, and then if it doesn't get used, it can be returned. We don't think.
That works for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't think it will probably be necessary, but if it is, it would be good to be able to do it without having to go through this process again.
Agreed. Any comments from the commission on that scope? No. Dan, anything from online?
He's muted.
You're muted if you are trying to say anything.
Oh, I know it because he's not. I have gave him permission to talk.
Sorry, giving you
Dana.
permission to talk, Dan.
You have permission now.
All right, here I've been.
Welcome to the commission.
Sorry, we forgot that.
No comments from me. That was an awful
Okay.
lot for me to say that, but
Great. All right. So it sounds like, Cassie, we're ready to go forward with signing that additional authorization.
Okay, yeah, so the way that would work is I'll sign it, or I need to get a check for that total amount, Luke, from the applicant, then I can sign it once I have that in hand. And then that will start the review of the latest response to the supplemental review that we got from the applicant. So hopefully that can be completed within time for the next meeting. I can't guarantee that it would be. It depends on what Beals and Thomas can do.
Was there anything else, Luke, that you wanted to bring up, or you're looking to just continue from here?
Yeah, just continuing from here would be good.
Okay. Were there any
Oh, sorry, go on.
public comments at this point?
I don't know if you were here for this item, Garrett. And then if there's some people, okay, so we'll do it as two parts. We do people who are present, and then we do people who are online. The folks who are online, you can use the raise hand button, which is a button that looks like a hand to the left of the end the call button. I'll put you in the queue for that. But if you guys want it, we can do it in person first, and we go from there.
Why don't you leave those up?
Garrett Stover, as usual, here on behalf of the Wisconsin Conservation Trust. A little like getting to the top of the stairs and expect another stair. That doesn't appear. So I have a few comments that are based on the Beals and Thomas response. I'm not quite sure which one. And just quickly, I noticed there was a fair amount of comment about the basins R1 and R2. R1 and R2 are particular concern to us because they're either in or proximate to priority habitat, the property line, and the stream. And these are not locations where we think that waivers should be granted, corners should be cut. There was a downpour as I drove over here, and it's just a reminder that these are changing. And even if structures are constructed in accordance with regulations, to have something fail in those locations is a fearsome prospect. And I noticed the comments about the applicants commenting about the high water table on the site. And I just want to point out that that's something that the neighbors have repeated over and over and over again. Unfortunately, it's not taken in this case as a reason to reduce the intensity and alter the location of the development, but it's sort of stated as the fact that we can still build this intensive development on. I just want to remind the commission about what happened when the plains were developed. And for years afterwards, and even to date, the city is dealing with issues of siltation and runoff into the pond. So the consequences of extensive development need to be considered. And in that case, the pond served as a buffer between the watershed and the Mandan River. In this instance, you're right next to the river. Finally, I noticed that there's a lot of work that's gone into the stormwater analysis, and the tables that I, with my inexpert eye, noticed that they calculate a reduced overall flow, but from the pre-development state. In this case, though, you're not dealing with runoff from fields and mature woods, as is the case now. You're dealing with runoff from parking lots, rooftops, and the like. Okay, now prepared remarks. So this is a matter that we're sending also to the planning board because it deals with the general observations. So dear Chair Belcher-Timmy and Chair Busso, Wisconsin has reviewed the 8/29/2023 plan submitted by Tasty Top LLC. We have been encouraged that the applicant has made modest adjustments to respond to public comments. Still, as noted to the planning board, the changes made to date in the most vulnerable area of the site, moving two buildings a few feet further from the Mandan, still do not address the serious impacts this development would have on wildlife habitat, our conservation area, prime farmland, and the river. However, the applicant has also recently proposed other much more substantial changes, including fewer commercial buildings with different uses and fewer and/or relocated and consolidated residential structures. These changes clearly demonstrate the developer's ability to significantly alter its plans. Yet the major modifications to date seem strategic in nature, intended to address the concerns of two major landowners whose assent is necessary or expedient for the progress of the project, rather than substantively improving it. At its most recent meeting, the planning board noted its prerogative to dictate particulars of the entrance intersection based upon the physical facts and according to the best interests of the community. This power applies equally to other aspects of the project. And while the MEPA process may seem to divert to the Commonwealth the city's regulatory task, ultimately responsibility for decision-making still lies with you. Accordingly, the Wisconsin Conservation Trust asks once again that the developer and the Planning Board and Conservation Commission work together to make further substantial revisions, this time to protect the site's irreplaceable habitat, aquifer, and agricultural resources. As we have observed early and often, this site the regulations of the developer's program, including provision of affordable housing, can easily accommodate such changes. The natural resources and other neighbors, wildlife and human, without strategic leverage on the project, deserve as much attention and respect as those with it. The city of Easthampton is committed to protect these in its plans, its overall zoning code, and indeed in the smart growth zoning district regulations and guidelines. The Planning Board and Conservation Commission owe effective attention to all the objectives, values, and standards enumerated in these city regulations and plans, and not just to the traffic safety, utilities, and stormwater issues which have consumed so much of your time, to ensure that your decisions result in a Tasty Top development compatible with Easthampton and its natural environment. Thank you sincerely for your consideration.
Thank you.
When you get a chance, Garrett, if you could sign the sheet at the top, for whenever. And then I also, unless the commission has anything to say, I have indicated on the online here that Marty Klein would like to make a comment if we're ready to hear that comment. Okay, Marty, hold on just a second. Let me give you the powers here. All right, Marty, you can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thanks, Cassie. I just wanted to mention a couple of things that have probably you've heard before, but there's a good reason to keep mentioning them because they haven't been addressed. And one thing I'll mention is Massachusetts, I don't know what it's called, law CMR 11.01, section 1A, which is to minimize and mitigate damage to the environment to the maximum extent practicable. I don't see this project doing that in any sense. If they used permeable paving to eliminate the need for large open stormwater basins that occupy significant portions of the site and are not suitable for residential use, and increase the loss of farmland and reduce buffers to environmentally sensitive areas. Also want to mention that this project is in conflict with several of the goals, and I know that this is not a regulatory document, but nevertheless, it was put together by the people in the government of Easthampton, presented in this recently adopted open space and recreation plan, including Goal 3, agriculture is preserved and promoted as an important aspect of community character. Goal 4, lands of natural resource, scenic, and recreation value are protected and well stewarded and are connected with each other and with neighborhoods. Goal 5, groundwater and surface water are protected as clean and abundant resources. This project protects none of the existing farmland on the property and instead converts this valuable resource to buildings, parking lots, and roadways, stormwater basins, and lawn areas. No restrictions or protections of this valuable resource have been proposed by the applicant, and instead the project has been sized to maximize the loss of farmland areas. The majority of the site is located within areas of prime farmland and on farmland of statewide importance. The applicant stated at the last planning board meeting, Mr. DeMarinis did, I'll quote you, he said, "I'm flexible." This was in regards to a discussion about traffic. Well, I'd like to see him walk the walk, because partnering with local and regional conservation organizations is a potential strategy for protecting the farmland and important environmental resources on the site. I think that's about it for me tonight.
Thank you, Marty.
You're welcome.
Are there any other comments online, Kelsey?
I haven't seen anybody else raise a hand for this item. And I believe the other two folks who I see here are for other items, except for the unknown one. But if someone else would like to make a comment, they can raise your hand. Use that raise hand button, which is to the left of the end meeting button.
Okay. All right, there are no further comments. I think we're ready to talk about continuing. Our next meeting is September 25th. I will not be
I have a note that you're on vacation. I'm
Available that day.
available, but my concern is that you're not here. So,
Right.
you know, that's
And I think we're still in the situation where if we lose one more person, we lose quorum, right?
Right.
Basically, if you miss more than one of the iterations of the hearing, you can certify one as being that you watched the recording, you reviewed the minutes, you're prepared, you absorb that material, but you only do that for one missed meeting. After you miss your one and certify for that, you won't be able to vote at the end if you miss another one. So in previous discussions with the applicant, they were concerned about that, and reasonably, I think the more people who can vote on it, the better. So the course of action the commission determined previously was to simply continue until we have everybody back here again.
But the next meeting is
October
9th, which looks like it's Columbus Day, so I don't know what that means.
No, we don't have
not
another
a
that day.
meeting then.
So we have the next
So then
meeting
we
will be
have to
October 23rd.
23rd.
Yeah.
I think that's right. Yeah, so that's the next meeting.
Well, certainly the peer review will be completed by then.
Right, so that would give the applicant more time. Are you amenable, Luke, to continuing to October 23rd? Is he still up?
Yes, he's still here. Yeah.
Sorry, just to further understand, so Commissioner Julie, if you missed the next meeting, you would not be able to vote.
Yes,
Well, we lose quorum if we don't.
we wouldn't necessarily lose quorum, but it would be an issue of that you wouldn't be able to vote on the item if and when we got to
So if
that
we lose
place.
somebody else, then we're.
You're only
yeah,
allowed to,
right,
if we lose too many people,
Right.
too many people become unavailable to vote,
Sure.
then we would potentially lose quorum. So that's the concern.
Let's go to-
Yeah.
Sorry, what was that, Luke?
Excuse me. If we'd like to continue to the next meeting for now, and then I'll discuss with the applicant. October 23rd is a long way off. So I feel the need to talk to him first before we continue it till that date. So if it's okay to continue it to the September 25th meeting for now, I'd like to do that.
The only other thing that would potentially the commission
Yeah.
could do,
At the door.
if, hey, Luke, you're not muted yet, sorry. Unless
Sorry.
you're trying to say something, it's okay. One of the things that the commission could consider doing, though it can be really hard to do because of schedules, is to try to hold a special meeting. It will be posted 48 hours in advance, but it's outside of our normal meeting schedule, to try to accommodate folks when things like this happen. But we definitely need to have a quorum of people, if not all commissioners who, so it's hard to schedule. It's usually the reason why we don't usually do it. Right.
Thoughts?
Are you available the 30th?
Of September.
Sorry, I'm the wrong month.
I was gonna say, I think that's a Friday or Saturday
Yeah,
or
no,
something.
the wrong month, yeah.
Right, that's it, piece. I need to make sure this room or all room is available to the commission that would be able to do hybrid and keep it all being happening simultaneously. So,
The 2nd of October, it's a Monday. A week after the 25th of September.
This would be an extra meeting or
Be an extra
or
meeting.
would it replace the 25th?
No, it would be an extra meeting. Should we be adding a second meeting back into October?
I don't know if I could make.
Okay. Then the next Monday is Columbus Day, which is the 9th.
Right,
Which
which is
is
why
my
we don't
scheduled
have one
meeting.
then.
we can't do it. City Hall's closed.
City Hall's closed. Then the next would be, the 16th would be a Monday. But that's only 1 week before the October 23rd date that we were.
And I know I will be out of town on the 16th.
It doesn't necessarily have to be on a Monday, but
No, it doesn't.
it's hard.
Well, let's continue to the 25th. And then I think, Luke, what you were suggesting is that you check in with the applicant to see if they were willing to postpone until the 23rd, correct?
Correct. Yes.
How many of us have missed at least one meeting? Or well, one
Everybody.
meeting? Everybody.
Everybody has missed one.
I have,
You've missed one.
not that it was discussed.
Oh, you're right.
Because we continued over.
Because we continue past it to avoid it. That's what we're trying to do
That's what we're trying
again.
to do now.
So sorry, I thought that you still needed to certify. Yeah, so you could, well then, sorry, I was confused. I want to let's continue to the 25th. Let me double check to make sure that's the case. So you might be good to go. And like, if you can miss that one, then you certify that one. Since we continued on on whatever meeting you missed.
I'm just concerned not having you at a meeting that we're discussing this, that's all. That's my biggest concern.
True. I will. Yeah, that's a good question. Definitely everyone's missed at least one meeting, but you haven't yet. And then Jay, I don't know if you have. And then Commissioner Whitmer is out. He's missed too many. He cannot vote.
Who has not missed one?
No, Julie potentially hasn't technically missed one, we just continued that day.
I think we continued over this for me also.
And I think that's true.
Yeah.
So you guys both might be okay and still have one that you can certify to miss and have it without you. So I'll send an updated one to everybody.
Little poll thing to see what dates work for people, or is that?
We
I
can
mean,
do
it seems like the longer it goes on, the more likely it is, I'll have missed
by
at
random,
least
we're gonna
one,
get-
just
Well, that's
because
the hard
you are
part.
going on
Yeah,
vacation.
absolutely.
That's the
Right.
hard part. So, yeah. I'm just making up notes.
So for now, we need a motion and then we can work behind the scenes to see if we can find a different
I'll
day.
make a motion that we continue to September 25th at 6 PM.
Second,
All those in favor, roll call vote. August, Carr,
hi.
Weeks,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Patrick.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thanks, Luke.
Thank you.
All right. I thought we had another public hearing. We don't?
This is the only one I've listed.
But we have other things.
Oh, it's under, never mind. It was the enforcement. Okay. So no certificates of compliance. Moving on to enforcement actions. I believe we have two to discuss. The first being 93 Northampton Street.
Yeah,
that correct?
it is, and I see you just left, but the main thing was that they're supposed to start the work for the BBW, the historical BBW restoration in September.
Mhm.
The invasives work, the first wave has been completed, and we're waiting for the review of that, I suppose. And then the crossing is the last piece, but that is, the commission agreed to let that wait until 2 years since it was approved.
Okay.
So what I need to do is ask them, like, okay, what's the solid date for when you're going to start the BBW restoration?
Okay. Great. Next, Loudville Condominiums LLC, 6973 Loudville Road. This is enforcement order 2023-001. We have someone here for this item.
Yeah, hold on just a second. I have Philippe Crego. Let me just give you the permissions to do that. You can go ahead whenever you're ready for it.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
We can.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Philippe Crevo of Arlevec Associates. Here just to provide an update on the restoration plan over at Stepler Crossing. I believe since the last meeting, a number of items have been done over at the slope restoration area that the commission had requested some updates on. So since the last meeting, I know that the slope had been constructed and obviously it wasn't built to the standards that the commission was expecting. So they went back and restabilized the slope there. I do have some photos of that. I believe Cassie's been on site. So if you would like, I can share some photos of what that slope restoration of what has taken place, and even more since these photos, I believe. Let me see here.
Yeah, I just quickly, Philippe, I did my site visit on the 7th with Commissioner Weeks. So I have pictures, but if Philippe, if you want to go first, that's fine. Whatever the commission is really.
Yep. So however you want to handle it, but I can just share some. I can share just some photos.
You have the permission to do so. Yeah, there we go.
Here we go. Okay. So this is what the lifts have been revised to. And since these have been revised or updated or reconstructed, plantings have been installed on each of the terraces of the lifts. These are 2x12s just for sort of dimensional, just aspects of what's going on here. So that is one of the photos. This is kind of a view looking down with the matting here, and kind of looking up at it from the bottom.
I'm sorry to interrupt. For the interest of time, I have pictures that show the plantings, which might be more helpful.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Let me just do that real quick.
Right.
Let me get to where that is in here. I took pictures of the entire site, so I just need to get to that part. All right, here we go. Hold on just a second. Sharing my screen now. And please let me know, everybody, if you want to zoom in anything in particular, because I know it's a little tiny, but that's from the top of the slope. And then we kind of worked our way down from the side here, the Commissioner Weeks.
Can you see it?
Yes. Hold on just a second. And I have pictures from the bottom looking up too. There's more than this. And then, so could you remind us what the plantings were again?
Yep, I have a list of the plantings. So that last restoration plan, essentially all of the plants, I believe there was only one species of fern that needed to be swapped out or substituted for just, I believe, for availability. But there are on the slope list pussy willow, gray dogwood, and Christmas fern. Those are tubelings, and I believe some of those, the Christmas ferns would be the 1 gallon pots.
And I remember at the last meeting, one of the concerns was that cutting a space for those 1 gallon pots was not preferred. But Ryan had said that they had done a different method or something where that didn't end up, they didn't end up cutting a big hole for the to accommodate the 1 gallon. I don't know if you remember what the solution was.
Ryan didn't specifically give me that information, so I'm not sure. But I know all the other plantings.
If I may interrupt, he said that even though they were gallon pots, the actual plants were small, so the roots, when unpotted, could easily be fit down into the fabric with little slits without a big disruption.
Right.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, carrying on here.
At one point, I believe, actually, Jay, can I see, is that the most recent plan?
You might have a copy here too if you want. Sorry, let me bring it over.
So we didn't approve.
Well, that was the thing. So that was what we discussed at the last meeting, was that, and Jay and Jill were here. The previous meeting before that, the commission approved them to carry on with the restoration work, but because the full commission wasn't here, you explicitly did not approve the planting list. That wasn't understood, I guess, and they did the plantings. So the question is, does the commission approve the plantings now? Are they okay? Or do you want different ones? Or I don't know, whatever you guys want.
The planting list.
I see the gray dogwood because this was a mix. So the list that Jay is showing right now was a mix of the ones that they're proposing down below and the ones on the slope. That was the purchasing list.
Sure.
On the plan, it differentiates, I believe, between the two.
Because I know one of the plants, Royal Fern, was listed on the list that was circulated, and it's a wetland obligate, so it would make 0 sense and die here immediately. That was not planted on the slope. Was the lumber discussed at the last meeting?
My understanding, and correct me, Filippo, if this has changed or is different, but that was just there during construction. They're planning to remove it.
Correct.
Why is it still-
Yes. It was installed to kind of support the lifts, and then the plan is to remove it once the vegetation, the roots have taken for the plantings on the slope.
And
That suggests to me that the lifts are not stable on their own, which is the entire point of a vegetated soil encapsulated lift system.
Yeah. So I think that they were there obviously to help support the lifts, and I think once the roots get established, when you remove them, they would be, they would self-support, because there would be some obviously tensioning with the matting and the roots stabilization and everything like that.
That should not be necessary for this method. The entire intent is that the fabric holds the soil in place and you don't need to wait for the plants to vegetate.
I had the impression 2 weeks ago at the last meeting that they just sort of used them as forms to build the lifts and just hadn't taken them out yet, just pending us being okay with them. That there was no reason to suspect that anything was depending on those boards currently. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can have that discussion with the contractor and have them removed at, tomorrow.
I think potentially the contractor is on the call under unknowns, means raised their hand in the past. I think that's been the case. If I can, I'm going to give them an opportunity to speak. Hold on. Is that you, Carlos?
Yep, it's me. So, can you guys hear me?
We can.
Okay, so the 2x12s, we didn't really understand the way to shape the actual step. So we used those just literally for shaping. We would have taken those out already, but at the last meeting, like I think Dan is the one that said it, they said, why don't we just leave it for the next meeting? It has nothing to do with, I'm not worried about it establishing it or anything. I mean, we compacted it. So that was the whole idea of leaving it, right? Whatever, taking it out.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Cool. Were there other pending questions at the last meeting that we wanted to revisit?
So that was the main thing, the plantings, if they were okay. And I don't know if you formally said that yet. And then there's also the in-stream mitigation question. And I guess the plantings for down below in the wetland area. And then when sediment removal took place. And then the other piece is, I also got a request from Brian Nelson of Arlebeck Associates of wanting to remove some of the silt fencing that's around some of the units that are completed. I checked the rest of the site with Commissioner Weeks, but with this enforcement order going on, I just didn't know what the commission would prefer. Some areas do look pretty well established. It's a pretty other side of the site, but some areas, I don't know if it's appropriate to remove them yet. We can look at those pictures now, or we can, I'm realizing I'm throwing a lot of different items at you all, but those are the pieces that remained for me. Okay.
I have to drop off now, but thank you all. I think you're good.
Okay, so
Yeah, good idea.
and I apologize, I'm getting a notification on this computer, which is posting the meeting, that it's going to update the device in 27 minutes. It requires you to update. I don't think it's going to let me cancel this. I don't really know what to do about that.
Okay, well,
All right, let's move along.
we either gotta wrap this up or we're gonna fall back on that should an interruption occur in which the meeting ends abruptly clause, in which case everything gets automatically continued. We can do this. Let's do it. All right. So it sounds like the lumber can come out. There was also seed that was placed. Is that correct?
Yes, it looks like there was seed. Carlos, you could probably speak better to that.
Yeah, we seeded the area with the mix that was required.
Okay. So I think, unless there were other concerns, I think my only question about the plants was the wetland obligate species. So as long as those were not intended for this area, I didn't have any other issues. So I think we're okay there. Do we have the list for the lower areas so we can approve it? Should we know specifically which ones those are?
Should be on that plan as like a separate, and I can show it on the screen here.
We do have great.
It's just part of the plan, it's part of this.
So there's the upland plant list and the wetland plant list, which is on the right there. And then let me put it on the screen.
This was not the same.
Is it not the same? That one's from 724. Maybe
I don't
that's not
think
the
this
most
is the
recent.
same list that was reflected in.
I may have neglected to print it. I have it definitely in the digital form here.
There's a 726 plan.
Oh, 726.
Yes, I have it open right now, or I can email it to
Yeah,
you.
you can share your screen.
That would be great.
So I think there's two pretty iterations that were delivered pretty close to each other.
That's right. That's right.
There we go.
So this is the list. This is where the two lists are differentiated. And
You're gonna have to zoom in. That's not large enough for us to see.
Okay.
Thank you. So that is this. That is this one. So did I imagine that Royal Fern was on the list, the ordering list?
No, so I can pull up the plant list invoice. So this is what, I don't know.
On this invoice, it says Royal Fern, sub for cinnamon fern.
Oh, okay.
Right there.
That's on the invoice.
I am not sure that it's wet enough even down there for the Royal Fern.
Okay.
I'm not sure that will be successful. Did Ryan approve that?
I'm not sure if it was approved, but I know that we are also discussing a 2-year, just inspection schedule for this, for the mitigation area. So, if they do not take, I think that it would certainly make sense to replace them with the originally called for cinnamon fern, if that's preferable.
Okay. I'm sorry, can you go back again to that? Or no, I have it in front of me, never mind. So we've got 10 spice bush, 6 of the Royal Fern, 6 sensitive fern, 6 New York fern, and 6 wood fern. Can you give us that's a pretty large area. What would the spacing be for this number of plants? It doesn't seem like very many.
Yeah, actually, Cassie, I'm not sure if you took any photos in that area down there.
I didn't actually. You didn't walk all the way down, which is kind of silly. No.
Are they already installed?
They shouldn't. Are they installed?
Oh, I'm Carlos. Probably push back.
They are all. Yes, they are all installed.
Oh.
Okay. Then
So it looks like 10 to 20 foot spacing, I would say, about, just based on the scale of the plan. The closer ones being 10 and the farther spacing being about 20.
I would think that we need more plants than that to get that stabilized,
I'm sure there.
especially for things that are so small.
Yeah, I guess maybe Cassie, if you want to meet on site, I'm sure there's native vegetation that has started to pop up in there. So, maybe some of the native vegetation that was growing in there is kind of filling in the spots in between. But I guess I haven't been on site to definitively say that.
I'm willing to do a site visit.
Yeah, if you could do a site visit and get some photos that demonstrate well the spacing and kind of coverage.
Yeah, I can do that. Commissioner August,
Wasn't one of the other plans, the dogwood and all that was supposed to be down in the wetland area? I don't remember just for, I thought there were actual. Well, the spice bush.
There's a spice bush as well, 10 of those.
Bigger.
I think we just need to see what it looks like at this point since they're already installed.
Okay. I will do that. And then I'll be in touch with you guys if someone wants to meet me out there. Maybe that's helpful to help me ID the plants. And I'll email that to everybody. Okay, the last piece is where, if the commission's ready, in-stream mitigation discussion, and then the other piece was this request to remove some of the silt fencing in the other part of the site. The in-stream mitigation, where it kind of left off, was we had our conversation with Professor Jackson, and he was kind of thinking that any kind of sediment removal within the stream was ill-advised, and that that's a natural process, it might be more restrictive. I also spoke with, I don't know if you'd been here for any of these updates, that I had reached out to Mass Wildlife to see if they had any data on the area, and they had some fish data. And I spoke with one of the biologists there. He similarly did not advise any kind of sediment removal from the stream. He also advised against potentially rewooding or doing any work in the stream, similarly because he was concerned we don't really know what the previous condition was. We don't know that it would make it a benefit or a negative impact. So he noted that there is, was it slimy sculpin, Hal?
Correct.
Which is not a listed species, but is one of them note to be there. It is interesting that it's there. And then also lamprey as well. So the question became, what does the commission want to do for that kind of mitigation? Because that is pollution still to have that sediment go into the stream. And was a part of the violation. There had been talk about invasives removal as kind of a mitigation tactic, something that the commission has done similarly in other projects, violations. But to the size and where, I do not know what would be appropriate. And then I remember PCT had expressed interest in wanting to take part in the discussion potentially as well. And I'm glad you're here. But yeah, I'm trying to think what else.
The other suggestion that Scott Jackson had was not necessarily focus on implementation, but to have an assessment done that would identify future restoration or enhancement projects that could be done, so that we understood better, would addition of large wood be appropriate here? What would that look like? And kind of plan that out so that additional projects could be done to enhance the area after the fact.
Would the mitigation include funding for that? Because just making a plan without future resources to implement it.
Right, probably not at this point.
Yeah.
And who would do that assessment of a possible future?
Scott had a couple of suggestions. One of them was a lab group at UMass in the Ecological Conservation Department that had students, grad students who sometimes do this sort of work on the side. So that was one possibility. But I'm sure there could be other options as well.
Just so that I can understand and convey to obviously to the owner, wouldn't we say we're discussing off-site mitigation, so finding other areas in town?
No, we're not discussing off-site mitigation. We're discussing doing, and because we can't really mitigate for the actual damage that was incurred, which was the addition of sediment to the stream, we've been advised that that would be counterproductive at this point because it would do additional damage. We're talking about potentially doing an assessment to identify other restoration actions that could be taken along that reach to improve it, something along those lines. So other ways to enhance that stretch of
Got it.
that was impacted,
Okay.
but that are, you know, somewhat tangential to the specific incident that occurred.
Got it. Okay.
Other thoughts?
And would these UMass students do that for free or expect to be paid?
No, it's something they do for work.
So they'd be paid.
Right.
Yeah.
So that would be something that we would require as part of the enforcement order for the
Right.
property owners to pay for that service to be completed.
Well,
Is the Mass Wildlife, if they already did a fish survey, they could do it another? Is that what you would have here?
Well, so yeah, what I had, it was, see, I can't remember, is that the year on there, Deb, if you have that? I can't remember, but, that's one thing. I don't know when that fish study was most recently done. Recent enough that he felt like it's still relevant, certainly. And I think it's pretty focused on fish species. This seems like it might be more comprehensive if we would ask the UMass group to.
Oh,
so just to understand, so this would be in lieu of invasive species mitigation.
That's still on the table. We're just talking about options because we can't directly address the impact. We're looking for something that would sort of,
Balance it up.
yeah.
I might be contradicting myself, but if there was something that UMass folks could do that would maybe provide guidance to other landowners along Hannah Brook in terms of best management practices and some sort of outreach and communication with them. I don't want to seem like Piscataway would be trolling for money to do invasive work on our land, which we would love to have. I know at one point there was somebody along there that was driving their ATV across the brook and up into, if not, I think up into the conservation area. That fortunately stopped. But that kind of education about that kind of thing, if not outright assistance, other landowners, because Piscataway already knows, of course, what we should be doing.
Oh, I do the UMass students.
So I think maybe if everyone could give this some more thought for next time, I think we still need to get some clarity amongst ourselves as to what seems most appropriate there.
Are we okay with Cassie going out there and looking at that other silt fence that must be removed and having her make a judgment on that?
Yeah. Well, there's a whole bunch of pictures you took.
Yeah, I can show them if you want.
Pretty solid.
And it was units, correct me if I'm wrong, was it unit 6 through 13 or I can't remember what the numbers are. I have it written down. I can find it if the commission wants to see it. But let's go to those pictures.
So as you're bringing this up, and maybe the pictures will clear this up, but as we're getting into the end of the growing season, my one concern would be if things are not sufficiently stable, that we wind up having a wet, messy winter and stuff starts to move. That would be my concern here, that we don't have a repeat kind of scenario. So it may make more sense to leave it in place until we get into the next season and things start to green up again.
Pictures show like pretty developed grass.
Yeah,
Especially trees planted.
that original cul-de-sac that's off, as you come into the site off to the left-hand side there, I believe, were those the units, Cassie? Because the silt fence, I think is up gradient of some of those units of where the construction occurred, and the vegetation has really taken on that initial cul-de-sac that's there off to the left-hand side in any case.
Right, yeah, I can find that number here in a second. You can confirm that I have the right units up for consideration here. Hold on. We also have 12 minutes left. I wish that there was, I apologize for this because I really
There's
don't see
certainly
a way for me to
still,
pause it.
there's a lot of muck around the
other side,
other
yes.
basin and to
Agreed.
the right, but
Okay, it was units 4 through 13 are considered completed with lawns that are fully established. This is Ryan's message. And they would like to remove the silt fencing in those areas. And then I don't know, once I show these pictures, Philippe, if you can confirm where that kind of starts and stops, but we can also pull up a plan. That's not that one.
I can confirm which units. You said 4 through 16?
4 through 13.
4 through 13.
On 3. Okay, I'm gonna start sharing my screen now. So, yeah.
You took a
You know, I try to get more than less, but thank you. Thank you very much. So this is kind of starting at what I consider to be the most complete building, and then moving towards away from where the violation occurred, and that part that's still open. We're kind of walking around the edge of the site here. Some of these are really blurry, and I apologize for motion sickness.
So are we seeing patches in the grass there, or what are we looking at?
So there was like an erosion control blanket underneath.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the grass that's able to come through the erosion control blanket.
Okay, yeah.
That was one of the things I had a question about. I was like, I don't know if that's enough in this area yet. I don't even know, but I'm not sure if this is one of the units that's supposed to be included.
Yeah, let me, I'm pulling up the plans now. So
Thank
I can
you.
Verify.
And there's straw wattles there also.
Yes, it's a trench silt fencing and a straw
They
bottle.
want to remove those also, yeah.
Can they leave the straw bottles and remove the filter?
It's really whatever you guys want to require, really.
And this is all, most of what we're looking at is at the top of the slope, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So we're coming around the first bend here. This material here, it wasn't like loose soil. It was like fluff from at least I don't know if you remember how. It seems like it was fluff from the erosion control netting. Like
I couldn't identify what it was, but but that, where this photo is, it's very flat.
Okay.
So that wouldn't be so much of a concern. There were some other areas that we saw earlier where there's more of a slope and less established vegetation. And my worries would echo what you articulated a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
So leave it another month and see what it looks like.
I think let's leave it for now. It seems like there's still enough patchiness that with winter coming, I absolutely don't want to have a repeat of.
I
So that-
think it's a safe thing. Okay.
No, so what we're looking at is right adjacent to units 12 and 13, I believe. And after you come around this sort of bend or this sort of projection of the silt fence, once you get up behind 4 through 11, the units 4 through 11 are the ones that are part of that original cul-de-sac. 12 and 13 are what we were just looking at.
Okay, that's behind us. So they were including those two, but once you go farther away, those are the least established ones, in my opinion. Then once you go this direction, it gets potentially more established. I think, Philippe, are some people living in some of these houses yet?
I believe some of them are occupied, yes.
That's probably why they want to get rid of it.
I see.
It's cosmetics.
There were some that had grills on the back porch.
Yeah, that's right. Just quickly.
Is there also, to that matter, are there supposed to be wetland markers?
My understanding is that would be a post-construction certificate of compliance requirement, is to have those established. So I don't know what the plan is.
Since these are occupied though, if we're gonna start pulling out the barrier that currently tells people that
If we're
the
going to be
line,
going into those
I wanna
areas,
see
yeah.
those markers go in simultaneously.
Got it,
That's a
understood.
good point.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Okay.
I know, I would just extend my yard right out there.
Most of them like drop. There's some others.
Yeah, I know, some of it drops off, but
I don't extend my yard any more than I have to.
Okay, that seems like a good solution. I'm gonna stop if that's okay with you guys. We have we have 7 minutes left, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, Lord help me. I apologize, I don't know how to stop that.
It's okay, I've had that happen. Okay, so I think we're good on enforcement orders.
Well, there was
Yes.
one more discussion. Cassie, I don't know if now is an appropriate time to discuss it, but it would be the extension of the order of conditions request.
Yes, I did see that.
So that is scheduled to expire on October 6th of 2023, so next month. Technically, I think in the order of conditions, we request that they submit 30 days prior request.
I think that's a firm requirement.
I don't know if that's not in the act, I don't think.
No?
No, I think it's just a condition that we put in. I can double check, but it's happened in the past that the commission has extended orders having not yet received it in time for the 30 days. I know I've spoken to Mark Stinson at least about it before in the past.
Okay.
Whoa, we're right on it. And
Let's just make sure that's administratively
yeah.
okay. But yeah, we need to,
So then we could either, do it at the next meeting, you think? Yeah, Oh.
So,
yeah, I mean, we don't have the forms to do it now, so.
There's no form required to be submitted except for a request. And then we submit it, then we just issue a form to DEP saying, it's weird, but there is no proceeding form that we get from the
Oh.
applicant.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. Do we want to vote on it then?
Vote to extend the order of conditions.
Sure, let's do it.
Motion to
Second.
extend.
Are you looking for 1 year or 3 year?
I'm thinking 3 years because it would encompass those 2 years of the wetland
Yep.
mitigation time.
Yeah.
So we're looking for a motion to extend to what would be, I think, September 6th of 2026. Does that sound right, Cassie?
Motion to extend the order of
October,
26, sorry.
September 6th of 2026.
Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. August?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Weeks?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Motion carries. So you're all set there.
Great. Thank you for that.
Thanks for the reminder.
All right. Now we're done with enforcement orders. Anything on open space, Jeff?
No.
Okay. Any other critical project updates, Patrick?
Something about the school.
Yeah,
Snow.
they had a request for, an updated snow storage plan.
Oh, yeah.
So they wanted to know if they can include this highlighted area. Right now, it's only these hatched areas that are like outlined in that, which some of it is in the buffer zone, which I was surprised, but this is the approved plan from the pre-construction days. So
Okay.
I don't remember that discussion, but I'm sure it's like a minute.
I was confused because it seemed like you said in your email that they had been taking the snow off
That's
site,
what they said. They like,
but then there were all these places on the map
I know.
that showed storage.
so I think it was misunderstanding from the maintenance facility guys that they didn't even know that they
They
could
had
store
storage.
anywhere.
They had-
So they were trucking it all offsite. So they were happy to see that there was a plan, but they were like, it's not sufficient. We'd like to store it all, most of it here. And that seemed to me potentially preferable because it was outside of the buffer zone in that area. And there was already some spots in that area.
Right,
that-
so
But I didn't know if I was missing something about that, but it seems like it was worth.
is there something weird about that area where it was excluded or?
Yeah.
Isn't this where the big basin is that
The
doesn't drain?
basin is to the left where that one of those hatches is. So it's like, that doesn't make sense. But that piece that's highlighted is not. It's just open lawn. They use it to play like recess and things like that. I didn't show a picture.
We probably don't have time to show a picture.
Probably don't, but
If it's open lawn and it's sufficiently back from the resource areas, I don't see any issues. But whatever, I do not want shown as snow storage on this plan, the basin
Sure.
right.
that needs repaired.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's so nice. Okay, that makes sense to me. Okay.
Any other comments from folks?
I don't know, but the basin looks fine to me.
I don't see any issue with storing snow in the lawn. That's the play area.
And I will make sure they note none in the basin. They haven't gone out to bid yet with the contracting for it, so those notes will be in there. Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Well,
Either adjourn.
we're 2 minutes. It's really crazy. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we would
Florence Road, 50 Florence Road, was there?
50 Florence Road. Hal and I did a site visit today. There was this violation in the past where they need to fix some grading in the center of the site. My recommendation is that the commission request that they give us a timeline for redoing that grading that's outside of any jurisdictional areas under the array. Should solve the problem of the water that's kind of accumulating the space and going over. They've cleaned it up there, But also there's some areas of silt fencing that are down that they need to fix, kind of throughout the site. Most of it's upland, so it's not as much of a concern, but they just need to rebuff it all up before the winter time. So
Okay.
I'm at this stage, I'm not recommending an enforcement order, but it's like, we need to keep on them because
Okay,
the
but,
work.
but the regrading needs to be next spring
know,
after,
yeah.
you know, the worst of the winter is passed, otherwise it's just gonna get all pushed around.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the bigger piece.
All right. So we're just watching that for now.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.
I don't have any minutes for you because I was too slow. And then, I know I'm going crazy with it. And then the last thing was 385 Main Street. They weren't able to attend tonight. They likely won't be able to attend the next meeting because it is Yom Kippur. And they said
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.